Okay. So good evening, everybody. We have three people right now. That's good. Let's start with that. This is our 32nd BC Open discussion meeting. Uh, don't have much today. There were very few questions. So we'll keep it open for questions at the end if time permits. Let's go through the normals, which is if you are here for the first time or being registering on this site. That's one option that you can always go and register here. This link gets updated every weekend. But if you are in the meeting and you want to be default attendee going forward and want to save the hassle of registering every time, just drop your email ID and name in the chat during the session, and I'll make you default attendee. So after that, you don't have to register. Okay. Then let's talk about what's happening, what I was able to catch up. And the one thing that I found cool that's happening is there is a webinar on Thursday, 11th March. This is from Directions. James, Adrian, and our Waldo will be speaking there. So go ahead and register for it. It's free. There's no charges for it. They'll be talking about what we talked last week, which is majorly about breaking changes, how to handle those situations. And as we discussed in the last week, it's very important to understand and plan for those breaking changes and you know how should we work on fixing those. So here's the link for the registration. Uh, I'll put it in the recording later. You can go ahead and register on this link, and these are the reasons that are listed why somebody would like to attend. To understand what's breaking, how should we plan for those breaking changes, for consultant, how should they design solution, and for developers, how code need to be rewrite if there are breaking changes. And in this ever changing business central world, it makes sense that we all plan for breaking changes as we go forward. Um, the next release, which is expected anytime now, will have less breaking changes, but the next one that's coming up at the end of this year will have more breaking changes than this one. So you should start thinking about it. If you are an ISV, then it's super critical for you because you need to have your app ready before that breaking change implement. Even if you're not an ISV but you have customers on SaaS, then you need to start working on identifying those breaking changes and fixing them before that major hot fix gets applied on SaaS customers. And as we all know, on-prem follows the SaaS rule. So eventually when your customer would plan their next upgrade on on-prem, they will also get stuck with that breaking change. So we need to continuously work on those as we discussed in the last meeting. And I'm pretty sure we'll get good insights about it on this webinar. So go ahead and register for it. I'll put the recording link, the registration link on the recording. So go ahead and check that later. Anybody have any thoughts on breaking changes other than what we discussed on the last meeting? Okay, so if not, then we'll go through some questions. There are some questions, I guess three questions, and one is mine. So I thought I'll ask my question also. But this one is from Srinivasan, and his question is how to access multiple language and services for multiple database through web client. After publishing the web client with relevant service through PowerShell command, the web client is not able to open. That seems a little bit odd, but I think this question is about on-prem installation of Business Center. So just for the demo, what I've done is I have this BC170 service, which is mapped to the demo database 17.0, and then this BC170 demo, which is mapped to BC172 demo 2 database. As we talk about the client, starting Business Central 15 and higher, there's only one client that we all know is the modern client, or aka the web client. And if you see right now, this is the only website available, which is surely pointing to the default instance of BC170. And the way it happens is that these files are placed in a folder in your C inet pub. If I go to, guess, let me see, explore, you should be able to see this. Yes, here it is, which is on your C drive inet pub www root BC170. And then if you filter this area with JSON type of file, you will see that there is a nav setting file, which uh, have the details that which service this website is actually connecting to. So when you open this file, there is a credential type, the server instance, the server name, the client credential type, which type of users will connect to it, Windows or other user type. There are two ports that are listed here, which is client service port and management port. And this gets set up on while you're installing your Business Central. Now the question is around if I have to have a separate web instance for my BC170 demo database, which is my demo 2 database. So I don't know why PowerShell is not working, but I'll give it a try right now. We can see is it working or not. So you can use either PowerShell, or you can use the PowerShell ISE, which I prefer because I get the assist edits. So you'll do the import module to fetch the commands, which is stored in your service folder that is called PS1. Now this get loaded, all these commands are here. Out of these, there is one command to create a new web instance using new nav web server instance. If you do more detail, you will see what parameters are needed. And one of them is, the first one is server, uh, where you are connecting to. Then your service name, which in our case is BC170-demo. What you want to call your web service instance, and you can call it anything. Let's say I'll call it prod. We want to add the firewall exception to this. Then other parameters are not mandatory, but I'll set some of those, like the Windows one, because others will get copied from the existing uh, inetpub folder that already exists. Now my client service port on this service is 9046. So let's do 9046, and then my management service port is 9045. And then the last option here is, do you want a subsite or a root site? So
Uh,
subsite,
Hey, Saurabh, Sachin
hey,
here. Can you increase the font
oh, sorry.
because it's not
Yeah, why not?
visible clearly? Yep.
Okay, can
Thank
you
you.
see it now?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go back again. The server name, the service instance that you want to connect, map to that particular web instance. The whatever you want to call that website, like by default one is called as BC170. You can name it anything as you want. Let's say I want to call it prod. Add that rule to firewall. Use the credential that you want to use, the client service port and the management service port. And then I want a subsite. Once you run it, eventually what will happen is you'll have a new website hosted on your ISS. So this is done. Let's refresh this. Okay, so you see now there is a prod. If you go into exploration of this and again filter it out here, you will see whatever settings we have chosen in our configuration would have been set here. Okay. So here is my server instance name, which is pointing to this. Server is localhost. Credential type is Windows, which is here. The ports are set. So now let's try to access this. Manage application. And here it is, localhost 8080 broad. So now this is how you kind of create a new website for a new database that you have on-prem. So like you can have a test service created and a production service created for your customers, and a demo service also if they want to access the demo database during the testing. So Srinivas is not here, but I guess Srinivas, you got answer of your question. If not, uh, please resubmit that question if I didn't understand it correctly, and then we can talk about it next week. Any other questions on this before we move forward? Okay. So the next question is mine. I tried to post it on Twitter. I didn't get good feedback, but there's something which I was trying to build, and this is about this nabapp.get module info. When you read the documentation of it on MSDN, it says that based on the app ID that you're passing, it will return you the detail of that particular app. So just for the demo, this is what I was trying, and anybody have any insights on it will be super helpful. But let me create a code unit here. Okay. So the idea is, let's say, to get the details of base Microsoft app just for the demo. So if I create a code unit and let's say 901, I'll have to do this here. And let me increase the font before I forgot about it. Okay, so the idea is to kind of get a app version. So let me create a function get app version. Okay, procedure. Okay. So just for the demo, let's say I want to fetch the mm, details about the base app. And the way I'm thinking about it is what I'll do is I'll create a variable of my all object, which is pointing to my all object table. And then from my all object, I'll do just a random set range on any of the base Microsoft object. Let's say table 18, that'll be simple enough, it'll always exist. Getting echo somewhere. Okay. Okay. So the idea is to get the GUID of my app, which is stored in my app package ID. That'll tell me the app ID of my base Microsoft app. So let's say I'll create a variable called my app ID with all object.app package ID. And then this becomes a type of GUID. So if I print this, I get the right ID of my base app. But then there is a function in the nav app procedure, which is get module info. Intention of this function is to get the info about the specified AL application, and the parameters it needs is the app ID and then a variable of type module info. So let's create a variable of module info. info of module info. Now the idea is that I'll pass my app ID and I'll pass my minfo, and it always returns a boolean. And this is, sorry, I didn't complete the function name, get module info. Get module info returns a boolean. So I'm saying that it will return boolean, then do, okay. So my idea is to just to print that in a message, just to just to make it simple. But what is my, and m info stores all that info, my app version, and let's say my app name. Name. Okay. For some reason, this function is not, and let me add it somewhere in a page extension so that we can run this. And I'll just copy this here only. What I've done is I've created an action on my customer list just to see that is it working or not. Okay. Okay. I should have pasted it here. This one here. Okay. So this one will run that code unit, which is my code unit. Okay. And this one will run this. Now this is supposed to run this and show me these messages. And just for the discussion, I'll add this also as my app ID to see is it returning correct or not. So the intention, okay, what is it? You don't have following permission to published app indirect. Okay, I might have used the wrong license. Let me change that. But anybody have used it while I'm doing this? Mm, PC container license. PC. Okay. While this PowerShell is running, anybody have used this function over here? Because there is one more function which seems to be working, which is get current module info, which returns you the information of your current app, which is this app which I'm publishing. But I'm having a hard time in getting a module info for in other app on which I want to get info of that. So let's see. It gets published. We'll see what's happening. Okay. Here is that action that we have added. It shows me that app ID. from that message that we have added earlier, which is here, this one. But then it returns false on this for some reasons. So it returns nothing. But if I change it to, if I change that function and use the other function which is available, which is this get current module info, then it returns me everything. It needs the info one, so I'll pass this. Let's save it now and try to publish it now. Okay, sorry, I forgot to begin here. Okay, here it is. In this case, it shows me that the version of the app is 1.0 based on my app. Where is that? Here. So let's see the app.json. It shows me that 1.0 and the name should be basically open discussion 6th March. So it shows me this. So for some reason, and I haven't got a reply on this yet, I might have to create a Microsoft ticket if required. I'm not able to run this get module info where I'm passing the app ID and then referring it to this, trying to fetch the info into minfo variable. If anybody have used it ever, please let me know. Otherwise, we can move ahead to other questions.
Is it not working in AL only, or if you try the similar, or maybe not, if not exactly same, similar thing in Business Central admin shell? I think there. Did you try that?
I'm not sure admin cell have something like this.
Not exactly, maybe not exactly, but similar. I don't remember exactly, but like we can get the apps in list of apps and dependencies and all that.
Yeah, as in get app info does work,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah. I
you,
was talking about get app.
yeah, nav app info does work. Get nav app info, this one works. So if I do a on a local one BC 1670, it will return me all the apps that are there. And if I, you know, add
Yeah,
the ID of it,
and right, and the
then in,
name, version, publisher, and all the
yeah,
generic
then
information.
only return me that. So here it works, get nav app info on the PowerShell. But I was just trying to do this for some thing that I was trying to write, and this get module info is failing for some reason. Okay, so if nobody have used it, but that was my question. I thought I'll add my question also there. Okay, let's come back to the slide.
I got disconnected in between. So were you able
Sorry, I didn't hear you at the end.
to get my app ID successfully? I got disconnected in between. That's why I'm asking. My app
Yeah,
ID you're able to get, right?
yeah, because that's stored in your all objects. So every object now in the data inside that all object table actually have a reference to the app from which it is coming from. So if you check the fields there is app package ID and then there is app runtime package ID. Both IDs are there in all object table.
Okay. Okay.
So that can, that can help you to fetch that info. Okay, so then the
So,
last
so
question.
I have
Yeah,
one question regarding related to this. Can
yeah,
I?
go ahead.
Yeah, actually, the coordinate you used, my requirement is that to get the object IDs. I mean, we develop several extensions and we use several IDs for that, like for table, page, and others. So there is
Mm-hmm.
limitations in license, like we have 100 objects or maybe 200 objects for pages or tables.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to get the IDs I used in the objects. I mean, in
That's
the
that's
extensions.
that's possible. You can just do a kind of set range on your app package ID, and you'll get all the objects in that. So your app will have an ID, right? So just for this
Yes,
example, if my this app has this ID, this is unique, right?
yes,
Now this have a code unit and a page extension, right? So if I do my on my app package ID with this GUID, hope this accepts it. If it finds it, I can just print the number of objects, and you can play it the way you want it. But I surely can do how many objects are there in this particular app. Oh, what happened? That didn't game. Okay, so maybe I'm. Let me see the app package ID did not match to that. Okay. Mm, okay, let me do this. My app version. Once this is got, I can do my. This can actually come from my nav app dot m info, which is storing that info dot app ID. And then it messages us out. Okay. It says 347. That's weird. Okay, maybe I'm referring to the wrong field then. Maybe this is not the app package ID that I should be checking. That's good to know. Let me see. I can actually. $17.421. From where this number is coming from now? US 347. Okay. Get module info my app ID, and this time it is blank. Still it's returning it. I should have done this. Okay. Minus this. I was doing it wrong. Sorry. So I just got the current app info detail on that my info and then did a set range of that into here on the ID. And then this is 1.0 BC open discussion, and it doesn't return anything. We should be able to do that. Now you just want the object numbers, as an object that's are in there, right?
yeah, right, right, right.
That
Because
should be
sometimes actually there is limitations of IDs, 100 objects. So how much I have used, I need to know.
right, and that makes sense. And that should be possible. Let me see. Because that should be on my, what do we call that? Help and support, page inspector. There should be ID of this extension. System exclude BC open discussion by default. It's 240. Okay, let me try the runtime one because either of those have this. I've used it somewhere else. That's interesting. Okay, I'll check that, Sahid. I have used it somewhere in a solution, but I'm pretty sure I'll share that next week for sure.
Sure.
And maybe this is the problem that I'm facing, that my all object table is not returning me the ID. So I guess that is the problem. But I'll test it if time permits today. Maybe
So,
we'll cover it later.
Saurabh,
But yeah,
why not you display in a message all objects, these all 2-3 fields?
all objects, these 2-3 fields. As in, I just wanted to
App,
see that is
app
it.
runtime package ID, app, the other 2-3 fields. What are the values in that? In
Let's
one of
see that on Object Designer, what is the table number for it, and then we can do a run table, right? And we'll see that tables. Okay, it's not working. It's in base application, I guess. Open a nail browser. Name is this, all objects search. Not in this system. Okay, name is all object.
Is there any space in between all object?
It is object, so there should be all object. It's all obj or all object. It says, let's see. It's all object, all obj. Sorry, my bad. All obj search. Okay, this is the table. So let's run this table on the tenant and fix it for once and for all. Okay, this is my tenant default, and then there is one table. Okay. What happened? That run table does not work, or is it just a table?
Stable, not run table.
This AL idea. Okay. Now, if you see this, there is this app package ID and app runtime package ID, right? And the best way to do it is, let's apply this filter on the ID that we created for our code unit, which is 90901. Let's filter this out. So the app package ID contain EB29, which is not the ID of the extension. Now that's odd, because the ID should be 67B. In neither
Is any
this.
other field having that value 672?
No, there are no other fields on this. Okay, so I guess that's the reason my code is also not working. Because what else table are there that we have? Object table have something? I doubt, but let's see. Okay.
I was thinking that you have your app's ID, right? Hard coded. So just try that for once. I think that function should work.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
instead of
Yeah,
instead of
that's.
getting the object and that, you could try for your own app, this app only.
Yeah, as in for this app, there is another command which is
Yeah,
working.
that's fine. I got
Right.
that current can be done, but
Right.
just for the checking the function, whether the function is working or not. It was giving the impression that there is some issue with the function, right? Some limitation or something.
That makes sense. Yeah. So if I do this, you're saying instead of doing all this, I can just do this and pass my app ID as my app ID. Okay. And then see this. This does not work. Alright. In this case, this should return me what I need.
And no,
So new test is 1.0. Yes, it does return me. So that function seems to be working. So now the question that Shahid have is how we can get this ID per object as an object wise. And then the table that store all object does not have that reference. Oh,
can you go? Can you run the table again, please?
okay.
Are
Let's
those two
here.
fields same in all the all the objects in one application?
So
Maybe if you remove this filter, object ID filter, and if you
yeah.
check in the page tables, is the value same in all these?
So these are
Can you remove object ID 18 also filter?
okay.
So looks like the application app of package ID is same, right, for all the objects.
Yes. Now this
So
is not the base app ID that I'm sure about. Because if I do a base app ID from extension management, 917 is not the ID, I guess. So base application, if I do a configure of this is 43CV, right? So then this is some other ID, which I'll have to understand from where it is working. So the other thing, Shahid, you can do, as in I'll work on what you're saying. But what you can do is you can filter out your IDs on this page or this table in this range or custom range because that's what you'll create, right?
Saurabh,
Right.
there is one table which says nav app installed apps. So can you just check that whether it contains data what you are looking at?
So the,
I
the
just
problem the problem with the nav app tables is you can't use it on SaaS development. Those tables
okay.
are kind of excluded if I tried using that, but as soon as you create a variable for that, it says it's not available for SaaS developments. So if you do a record of nav
Record and then
install app, yeah, it'll give you this warning later on. Oh, this one doesn't. Hmm. Okay, there was one more which I was trying to refer. I guess this one is it.
yes,
Yeah,
this is
this is different.
yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I can get that from that installed app.
Can we
So
try
that
now?
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Others, if they don't mind, I have no problem with that.
Because it
uh,
contains all the details related to the nav. You can go inside the record variable and
yeah,
you
so
can check
these
out.
are this, right? App ID and the package ID.
Yes, and you also get the publisher for this.
Yes, and if I just need, I guess, the package ID, and then the package ID can pass to that function which I was trying to do, which is the get module info, and that will return me what is required. Hmm. Okay, but as soon as I did that, it says nav app installed module does not contain a definition of get module info. So these two don't go along together.
No, no, there is a confusion behind the nav app variable declaration.
Oh,
Just
oh,
change to
sorry.
nav
Yeah,
app.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, because this is the key, as in the system word
Yes,
now, right?
correct.
Nav app is. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, guys. I guess I got what I need from this question. And Shahid, if you didn't find your solution, let me know. We can surely talk about it next week otherwise.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so the last question that I have for today was from someone, and it says, how can I have the location field mandatory on purchase order line before posting a purchase order? And I guess the follow-up thing was, which is the right event to do that? Anyone want to give it a try? As in, what should be the right place to check that the location is mandatory on purchase order lines before posting a purchase order? No one? Okay.
It is mandatory if you used.
Sorry?
I mean, location is already. I mean, it is already mandatory. If you use the item, the
It's
location
not,
must.
as in you can keep it blank, as in there's nothing that forces you to have a location on the line, right? As in there's nothing mandatory to have a location code on your sales or purchase line. That's how nav or business central have been for all these years. You can post it to a blank location if you want. So whenever we talk about the posting routines, and before it gets posted, I want to check something. I kind of love this function on coordinate 80 and 90. There is a check and something. I don't remember that. Let me see that. Is post. What post? Yes. On this, I'm pretty sure that there is a function of check and update. Yes, this is header, and then on before post line. Get this. So I would prefer it to be here. I think check and update should
Uh,
also be checking
can you
lines.
scroll up? There is one more extension available. Can you scroll up? It says on before post purchase doc.
Yeah,
Can
but this function check and update is actually used by Microsoft to do all the checks.
correct? Yeah.
So and there is a event here, I guess, on after check and all. So I would prefer writing it here, as in I would love to hear if anybody else have any other thoughts. But the idea behind this function is to check before any posting starts, right? And then it also updates it. I don't know where others will put it, but I would love to put it here on this subscriber, so that it gets called at the right place where all of the testings are done, because I don't want to warn at a different area and then the code moves to this area and then there is another warning or an other error, right? So wherever all the checks are happening in the system by Microsoft, I prefer to do my custom checks at the same point, so that if there is a problem, then all the problems are handled at the same area. Like there is this, right? Check mandatory header fields. So that's for the header. But this is the place, as in I don't know will that answer your question or not, but this is the area that I would love to keep the code, so that all the checks and balances are happening at the same time when Microsoft is testing for all other mandatory fields before posting. Anybody else have any thoughts? Please go ahead. Okay, so if not, I guess this was the last question, and before we move to open questions, there are so many
I
people
have a
join.
question.
Okay, yeah, there are so many people, those who joined late. So we talked about this webinar as per our last discussion about the breaking change thing in our last PC Open discussion. So please go ahead and register for this. I'm pretty sure there will be good amount of insightful information for everybody as a developer or as a consultant or as an ISV to how to handle these things. I'll put the link in the recording later. But okay, now I can open it for questions. So Sachin, you said you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, any tool you have for code coverage kind of thing? Not the routine code coverage we talk here. The code coverage in the sense I have a app wherein I just want to check whether each and every function is touched or not, like validations on those.
And did what Steve shared you last week, did that last time, did that help? Or I haven't
Uh,
actually went through that link, but I will surely go through that.
yes, I gone through that, but it was not covering the all points which we discussed that day. So that's an open question again for me.
Okay. And the requirement is for that app to be submitted on App Stores or something else. As in, I don't need to know the reason if that's,
Normally, in the routine development cycle, what we have is like we do an addition of the features and all the stuff. So once the feature is added, we just want to have the all checkpoints to be inside my unit test app. And once that is done, I have to check whether that particular feature is 100% covered or not.
okay. On top of my head, I don't know anything. Anybody else have any idea? Please help Sachin, but I'll have to see if there anything. I know there were some problems about the code coverage, but I'll see if I find something.
Okay.
Okay, and then Shahid, I see your hand raise.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Uh, uh, I have restored the production DB in my, development environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the version 14,
Mm-hmm.
BC14. So in development environment, there was already a database instance. So I restored in a new instance in the same database, and I changed this, related settings for running the I mean, client for
Mm-hmm.
this. Uh, so it's running as it is 14. RTC is running, but not the web client.
Is there any error while running the web client?
Web client is running, is getting the page, and in the final, in the last moment, is showing that something went wrong. No
Oh.
other things, but RTC is running fine.
Is there anything on the event log? Because if it is failing, there will be something on the event log.
Okay,
So do check on your event log, and if you find something which is not clear to you, do send me an email. I'll surely look at it. As in, you don't have to wait for the next meeting. But if you find
okay,
something on the event log that is that is confusing, just send it to me on an email.
okay. I'll. Thanks,
But
sure.
as in going forward, event log is your best friend for on-prem. Don't
Okay,
rely on what's coming on the screen, but rely on what's on your event log. And the best place to look at is this. When your event viewer, go to application and service log. Inside that, go to Microsoft, and then Dynamics Nav, it's called on-prem. And then you'll find the server related event logs here and the client related here. So this is the area where you should focus so that you only get Business Central related event logs rather than seeing all and then filtering it out. So all the event reported here are only related to my Business Central instances that I have. Okay. So you'll find something here. And if that is not clear, just send it to me. I'll have a look.
okay. I will check and let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else have anything? Okay, Steve, how's your Git journey is going on?
It is going well. Just
Good.
slowly walking through it and relearning everything from scratch. So
It's good. Yeah, I was watching your second video today morning, I guess, my time.
okay, cool. Yeah,
That was
I
good.
just did one before I joined this call, so that's why I was a little late. But
Oh, okay. Sounds good. And then have we started playing with the preview build of BC18, everybody? Sorry, or not?
I have not. I haven't had time.
Yeah, as in I'm also a little bit busy right now because of a week of PTO. Just trying to clear my email, and then I guess I'll have to start looking at it now, because then the customers who are on SaaS may have those one or two changes that are breaking this year. So need to be that those ready before that day comes. So yeah, keep an eye on it. Anything else? Any thoughts for next week? Okay. If
I
there,
have another question.
go ahead.
What is the best way? I mean, installing the nav extensions in production environment? Because sometimes, like, if I change the versions, like it was maybe one, I changed it to 1.1. Sometimes I face that it's not installing because the dependency and other things. So I need to clean the existing app. I mean, clean and then reinstall. But if I clean the existing app, then the related extension object values are not there. So will be good if you suggest a better way. I mean, installing from the existing one and
So you have apps which are dependent on other apps.
right,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's the trickiest question where people are stuck right now because of having multiple dependencies can be super tricky, not just from the perspective of installation or uninstallation, is also from the perspective of removing a functionality from the parent app, you know. So the easy way around is to have one app per customer. That's the easiest way around. Okay. The way that you are doing it, I don't know why you're creating a dependent app on your app. As in, that's a feature that a customer requested, right?
right,
A enhancement on a customization that you done, let's say a month ago or a year ago.
right,
So that's a enhancement on that particular app. You don't have to create a separate app for an enhancement. Even if you are building multiple apps for your customer, which makes good, which makes sense, as in that's the way app world should work. But you need to think that if a customer is requesting a enhancement on an existing app, then you'll modify that app. You'll not create a second app or a third app or a fourth app on it, because then at the same time what you're doing is you might have a table in your app which you are extending three more times because you have three more extension where customer requested a more field or another functionality on that, which will slow down the system also. If it is a completely different solution, then that makes sense that it's a separate app and it is not dependent on your previous apps.
actually, the idea is the objective was different because that's why I separated. But some information are used in the latest one, so that for that reason I need to use the dependency.
Yeah, with dependency, it'll not be that easy to kind of install and uninstall. You'll always have to uninstall all the dependent apps, and the the major problems that I've seen is when people do personalization. and then those are dependent on your apps. And as soon as you kind of uninstall or refresh your apps, sometimes those dependencies kind of break. So it's a little complex in any case. And as in, if you forcefully uninstall it also, it will uninstall your dependent app, but it will never reinstall them when you install the new version.
Yeah.
So that's how it is, as in there's no easy way to it. As in during
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Saurabh, you touched upon the performance issues. So I was just wondering that let's say if we have added 5 new fields in a table, and
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically all these 5 are created as new extensions.
Mm-hmm.
So are we saying that the performance is going to degrade if there are more extensions instead of having all 5 fields in one app? So how is that performance actually means? Is there a solid reason for saying that performance is going to
I did read an
degrade?
article from someone. I'll have to find that article. But on the contrary, I have also read a Microsoft session last year, I guess, where they talked about load on demand, that your table extensions are only loaded on demand now rather than loading all at the same time. But I haven't actually tested that because the way Microsoft explained it is it will only load table extension if you use the set load field. That's it. That's kind of a new keyword in code, that if, let's say, if there is a table extension on table 18, okay, and you do a find set as per Microsoft, and I haven't tested it, so that's why I'm saying as per Microsoft. Until
Yeah, there is
unless
set.
you do a set load field, it will not fetch any fields from table extension. So, and I even asked that question in the chat, that will, without the set load field, will the SQL query be select star, or will it be select primary key only? That's because that's the only difference. If the system will do select star in any case for the SQL perspective, then it will read all the table extensions also. So the Microsoft reply on that chat was that it only does select primary key fields. But if you do a set load field and specify your custom extension fields here, then it will do select primary key field and fields
Those
in
fields in
set
set
load
load.
field. But I haven't tested it. So that's why I'm saying, because I actually want to test it by writing 5 extension to a table, and then trying to do a repeat until without a set load field, and then see on SQL monitor what's actually happening, and then see it without that, with set load field.
Okay.
But last month, I guess I read about that it has an, as an, there is a impact of how many extension you have, especially table extension. But I was just making that statement based on that article. But let me see if I find that, because I took some screenshot back then. If I find them from Microsoft. Yes, I guess I have some of those. So this is one that they showed, that the SQL statements will be smaller. And in this example, they actually created 7 extension on that table. So without that, it was a view like this, and after that the view got better, and they said that the queries are 3 to 5% faster than they used to be in past. But yeah, that's a good thing to kind of test, and maybe I'll test that during this week to understand does that impact or not. because this is the fewer join thing, I guess, that they showed in that day. And then there was something else, plan cache, but I haven't actually tested it. So maybe I'll test it on a Docker or on an on-prem instance. Because my only question is about the select, how the select changes if I do a load field or if I don't do a load field. Because that will define how much impact my table extension is causing when I have multiple of those. Okay, anything else? And maybe that's a good topic for next week. I'll do my checks and then we can talk about that performance factor next week. What I find and
Yeah,
what we think.
sounds interesting topic.
That's that's been one of the major topic in NAB also in past about the performance.
Sorry,
As in performance was always been a topic, right?
exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, anybody? Okay, so then next week we'll be talking about that performance thing. I'll try to create a scenario where we can see that and then decide how, what we feel about it. So then see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you.
Thanks. So
Thank
thanks.
you.
See you.
Bye.